Spyz.
Welcome back to the next part of this Truth and Rhythm episode. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. Also become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon, or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you so much for your interest and support. Enjoy. There's so many, socially focused songs, even from the 60s and 70s, that keep being relevant. And I'm like, man,
yeah.
When are we going to get past this?
I made a conscious decision when that asshole got elected. I won't even say his name. But it was funny because we were making the album during that whole election process. And I never forget, I stayed up and I was watching, because I was like, man, I want to stay up and watch the returns. I want to see Hillary win. But I was like, I got a session in the morning. I got to be sharp and whatnot. So I think some numbers had just started to trickle in, and at that point they were already kind of saying, Hillary won here and she won here and she won there, and I was like, good, I'm gonna get up in the morning and hear Hillary's the president of the United States. And I got up and I turned on the news, and it was like, well, we've gotten about 80% in, and it looks like Donald Trump is the presumptive winner. And I was like, no, I'm going back to bed.
Yeah, or I'm not awake yet. Yeah.
I'm going to hit myself, and I'm going to wake up and go, that was a bad dream, right? And I got up, and it was what it was. And the funny thing was, New York did not vote him in. We knew what he was. He was a scumbag just like his father.
Or California, which is where I'm from.
There was no love whatsoever. So when I left out the house that day, it was the strangest. I left out the house and people just moved in silence. Nobody spoke. You could have had a rat piss on, dude. You could have had a rat piss on cotton. And this is that's how it was, just freakish. I got on the train. Nothing. Not a murmur, not a whisper, not a fart. Nobody said nothing. And this is me riding from the Bronx into Manhattan, get to Manhattan, jump on another train, go to Brooklyn. Silence. Because everybody was just numb. Like, this could not have happened. I got out the train station in Brooklyn, Williamsburg. I come upstairs, and everybody is just like, they just couldn't believe it. So I go in, I get into the studio, and everybody comes in, and everybody's just sitting there like, this is ridiculous. And we're like, he stole the election. I said the Russians tapped in and hacked and did all this kind of shit and whatnot. So the song we were going to work on to start with was Repetition, a song called Repetition. And I called it Repetition because it only had one lyric in it, and the lyric was "Shit won't stop until shit stops." That was the lyric, nothing else. And we're sitting there, and we're listening to the playback, and I said, well, we can go and cut vocals. And I said, something? No, we need to add another lyric. We need to put "fuck Trump" in that mother. So it became "Shit won't stop until shit stops." Fuck Trump. So we go and we cut it, and we're chanting like, "Shit won't stop until shit stops. Fuck Trump." Shit won't stop. So when we finished, I was like, something that might be a little too obvious. I said, let's flip it. I said, hey, can you run that backwards? He was like, what, the fuck Trump? I was like, yeah. So it was like, shit won't stop until shit stops. And it still sounded like he said rock Trump. But we made it, it's a song that shows up after Evolution, so it's an unlisted track. Evolution ends, and then there's like maybe 60 seconds of silence, and then it shows up. But we cut that the day he got elected. So,
Wow. I feel like I still have, PSPD, and but I'm telling people that's the best birthday gift I could ever have. What happened this week,
I knew people who said they slept for the first time that night because nobody slept well for the last 3-4 years. I said no, because you never knew what you were going to wake up to. You never knew what new ass wipe was going to pop up out the ground, feeling empowered by that shit bird. It just, for the first time in a long time. And I said, in one aspect, I was, because my mentality is always, yeah, there's lemons, but what do you do with your lemons? You either make great lemonade, you make lemon meringue pie, you make chicken piccata, you do something with those lemons. And in the wake of him, what I thought was great was that it finally showed America for what America is.
Yeah, not a pretty picture.
No, not at all. And that's the thing, I think from the first time we went on the road in '89, that was the first time we went across the United States, we went to places we thought we'd never go. Also the first time we went to Europe. But it was amazing going across America and encountering people from the smallest town, in every state. There wasn't any place that we didn't play. But the feeling was, we came away understanding that people are people, and there's good people everywhere. And it was amazing just how much the music, it literally just like put people together. Didn't matter, you could have been green, yellow, purple, whatever, but we watched more black and white kids mosh, pit, elbow slinging at these shows, and it was like, wow.
What would you say what was the typical racial mix at your early shows?
The first year, I'll use the first year as a great example. The first year for us, the shows, depending on, I'd say overall, because you can get to certain states and it would be a different makeup. But for the most part, I'd say it was 70% white, 30% black. The reason why the white kids got turned on to us early on was because we showed up in the skater magazines. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't threat because we were wearing Vision, streetwear, Stussy. We came out of the hardcore scene in New York. We literally were a chameleon type band because there wasn't any place that we couldn't fit in. As strange as we were musically, but we got in. And great case in point, our first, which is classic, our first real show opening for somebody wasn't, it is still like a mind blower, but it was Jesse Johnson's Review. That was our first real show. We opened for him at the Ritz, which was just classic because we'd gone to the Ritz and seen, because the Ritz was the room to see everybody. And we did see everybody there, That's where we saw the Peppers. That's where we saw Fishbone. That's where we saw the Bus Boys. We saw so many amazing shows at the Ritz. So for us to be playing the Ritz was going to be like epic, but to be opening for Jesse Johnson's Review was going to be like unbelievable. So we get there, and at this point in time, our equipment is literally held together with spit and bubble gum and tape and shoestring, and we get there and we come busting in the club, like we fucking made it, and we bring our raggedy shit in. He just rolled into the club, bam, making all this noise.
And
yelling
Jesse's
and
whole
screaming.
whole vibe was all so clean too, like the opposite of that.
Well, all of a sudden you look up at the stage and you go, oh, because at that point it was like pink Marshalls, pink polka dot Marshalls, and I mean the set was like, wow, like you were stunned at the beauty of the setup.
Yeah.
The funniest thing was, we push our little raggedy shit down to the lip of the front of the stage and whatnot. I'm like, wow. And just like my Eddie Hazel moment, I had that same moment with Jesse. I jump up on the stage, no shame in my game, like, wow, Mr. Johnson, unbelievable, amazing to meet you and shit. Didn't shake my hand, turned around and told his tech, make sure they shit don't touch my shit. And walked away from it, which was great. And I was like, yeah, fuck him too. We went right back to our regular shit. So the funny thing was, time to play. We get up there and we do our thing, and the diehard fans are like, wow, Spyz in the Ritz and shit. We're like, yeah. And we up there thinking we killing it, do our little 45-minute set, whatever it was. Get our raggedy shit off. It's Jesse Johnson's time now. So the Ritz had the dressing room was right over the stage, so you could have this huge window, so you could literally like look down on the stage as the show's going on. They come out, and the girls are going crazy. Everybody's in lace and whatnot. It's the Prince thing has transferred over now. So, and I'm just watching this dude, and I'm just like, fucking asshole. Fucking asshole. And they going through the motions and they doing their thing and whatnot. I'm just like, yeah, all right, whatever. And about 4 songs in, he goes, I want to do something. He goes, because we don't get to do this too often. He said, he goes, are y'all hip to the blues? I'm like, oh, dude's gonna go. He's gonna play some blues. So we'll see. He goes, we're gonna play Red House. And dude burned a fucking hole in that stage. Dude, it was almost like if I thought I knew he was a badass in the time. I had no idea to how deep of a badass he was until the show stopped and he decided to get real, and he played his ass off. And I watched him and I was just like, wow. And I learned a valuable lesson, because I was like, I said, too bad he was an asshole to me, because he's such a great player. I was like, but if I ever meet anybody, I said, I'm not going to do what he did, because if I meet somebody who's young and impressionable, I don't want to give them the impression that I'm here, I made it, and I'm an asshole. No, I'm gonna speak to everybody. He blew me off.
He's been notorious for how moody he is, and I saw that tour back then too. And the one I saw was in Anaheim, California, and Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 were the opening on that one. But I got to go backstage and I met Jesse and had him sign something. But yeah, I can't say he was real warm and friendly.
Well, I have a wow. I'm so happy to say there is another side to the story. So years later, I come on Facebook, and when I first came on Facebook, which was funny, like this is new. I'm like I'm the archaic man. Like, I didn't want a computer. I didn't want a cell phone. I didn't want any of that stuff. And I wind up getting a computer, and everybody's like, "Oh man, wow, you stepped into the 20th century." I'm like, "Yeah, leave me alone. You got to get on like social media." I'm like, "What the hell is social media?" So, I don't know. Oh, you got to put up a page on Facebook and this, that, and the other. I'm like, what is Facebook? So fine. I had no intention of putting a personal page up. I said, well, I can put a band page up because ain't nobody looking for me. I put up the band's page, or what I thought was the band page. I just put up a personal page. Everybody found me personally. And I was like, you got to be kidding. So about a year in, I ordered some custom amps from a company called Spyz. And I had gotten really sick and tired of black amps. I was like, I love color, but so I ordered a set of North Carolina blue Tolex and white because my favorite car was always a 57 Bel Air. Mm. And the first time I saw one, it was that North Carolina blue and white. It was gorgeous. I was like, I want my amps to look like that Bel Air. So I had them do them in North Carolina. And they were freaking out because metal dudes don't do color, or at least they didn't do color at that point. And I wound up being the first guy who ordered sky blue and white amps, cabinets, heads, and they looked like cotton candy. They were beautiful. So I post them, and everybody's freaking. I'm like, wow, okay, cool. So at that point in time, I don't even know how to set my my parameters in Facebook, and my shit is just anybody can post, anybody can respond. And it's one day I see Jesse Johnson. Hey man, this is Jesse. Wow, your amps look amazing. What are they like? Mesa, Marshall, please let me know. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? I didn't answer him back. So when I go back to the thread, like a day or two later, he removed his comment. I was like, probably wasn't him anyway. Comes back again. Hey man, it's Jesse. I wrote on the thread before, but I didn't think you saw it. So, dude, give me some insight on these amps. I'm like, Jesse Johnson? You gotta be kidding me. So I went and I clicked on, and it was him. He had a personal page at that time. I was like, oh wow, okay. I was like, and I didn't respond again. So the next thing I get is an inbox message, and he gives me his phone number. He's like, Jimmy, this is Jesse. He goes, dude, I'm dying to know about the amps. He goes, give me a call. I was like, why does dude want to talk to me? Because all of a sudden I go back to like 1980, whatever the hell, and I'm like, he blew me off. So I was like, should I call him? And I saw his birthday was coming up. I was like, I'm going to do the bitch move. The bitch move is when you can call somebody any day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but you don't. But because it's Thanksgiving. Hey, happy holiday. That's your entryway into a conversation. You could have had that conversation any day because it was Tuesday, Monday. So I was like, I'll wait until his birthday to call him. I'm going to let him, I'm just not going to call him. So I waited like a week, maybe 2 weeks, and I finally called. When I called, my whole mood was like, I'm going to be Iceberg Slim. Yeah. Jimmy. Yeah. Whoa, man, you called me. Yeah. How you doing? I'm good. I'm literally just trying not to give dude anything. And his wife at the time was there. So everything I say to him, he says to her, I can't, it's Jimmy, blah, 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 blah. And we're talking, and there's that angel and the devil thing again, And the angel is going, don't bring up the past. Leave things alone. The devil is like, tell that motherfucker he blew you off. I was like, shut up. So we talking, we laughing, and he was warm, and it was a beautiful conversation. And we about maybe a half an hour in, and I finally said, dude, I said, oh no, he shocked me. About 15 minutes in, he goes, dude, he goes, you shouted my name out in No Hope for Niggas. He said, and I damn near cried. I was like, you know? Because I didn't think he had any idea, He goes, oh yeah. He goes, are you kidding me? Because at the end of the song, I started shouting out the names of guitar players and, black guitar players who I felt needed to be shouted out. He was one of them. But I never knew that he heard the song. I was like, wow, oh man, that was, so I finally said to him, I said, well, we met like years ago. And he's like, are you serious? I was like, no, seriously. I said, as a matter of fact, we opened up for you. And he's like, no way. I was like, yeah. He goes, where? I said, New York. He goes, what venue? I said, the Ritz. He goes, that was y'all? He said, I thought that was Living Color. I was like, no, it was the other black guys. But he's like, no, seriously, that was y'all? I was like, yeah. So he goes, and I said, and quite honestly, you were an asshole to me. He goes, really? What did I do? And I kind of like just left out, certain things. I was like, well, we got to the club and, we came in. I came up to shake your hand. He was like, and all of a sudden he was like, wait a minute. He goes, y'all were that rowdy ass bunch of dudes with that really fucked up equipment. I was like, oh shit, he remembered. Oh God. And he was like, man, he goes, let me tell you something that you probably didn't know then. I was like, yes, sir. Tell me something. He's like, do you know how hard New York was as a market? For y'all? I said, no, because at that point I assumed, I didn't know the nature of the business per se. He was like, New York was always a hard market. He said, we had diehards, but New York was a hard market. He said, so he would, be at every radio station, kissing babies, shaking hands, politicking. He goes, all I want to do is get to the venue and get to my stage, He goes, so I finally get there for sound check. He said, I didn't even get the chance to go through the front and see the marquee. They took him around the back up the fire escape, out the view of people and whatnot. And he was like, so, Sanctuary was sound check. He said, and here we are, and I'm just getting acclimated, and here y'all come. And y'all literally crashed the party, like we did. And he goes, so where's the most important place you can go when you want to get away from everything? After sound check. He goes, exactly. I was like, so I'm sorry. He goes, no, I'm sorry too. From that point moving forward, he's my brother. I love him to death. Love him to death. He's such a beautiful dude. As amazing a player he is as beautiful a person he is. Seriously.
Yeah, he's just kind of a private guy, I think, is part of it too.
I think it's also because and I realized it looking back, it's kind of like what people think things are, and the whole Prince mystique and the whole Minneapolis thing. I think it grew beyond the point of folklore. It literally became its own entity. And for him, it had to be deep, I remember when they played they wound up not being able to play. I think when they got to New York, but instead had to stay behind the scrim and back up Vanity 6 because Prince pulled them off the bill, so they didn't get to play. So many like petty things had gotten done to them, and then for years Jesse kind of got tagged with the he wasn't seen for who he was until he broke out, did his own thing. And even at that point, while he made great music, it wasn't until I think people started, by the time they get to like Crazy with Shockadelica, him and Sly, he really kind of starts to dig deeper into his own thing. And by the time we get to Bare My Naked Soul, it's like,
well, yeah, that's a full-on rock album.
Ooh, my goodness. I was like, dude, I've been waiting for that record.
Yeah, that's a riff-heavy record.
That's where dude, he's a beast. Absolutely. I just heard, we talk all the time, which is great. Like I said, he's family. That's the other thing that I'm really grateful for. Like, so many of the cats that I come in contact with, I might start off as a fan, but we turn into family, and it stays that way.
Well, when he and some of those other guys you mentioned, you guys came together for the Jef Lee Johnson project, right?
Oh man, yeah, that was heavy. That was heavy because Jef, who I had, this is so funny. This is so funny. So Jef, who I knew of but didn't know of but knew of, in the strangest way. Um, a girl I was seeing at the time was a huge R&B fanatic, and I said, "Oh, she loved the Whispers." I was like, "I'm going to surprise her, you know. I'm going to take her to go see the Whispers and whatnot." And I really surprised her because I'm going to go buy pants, um, because I lived in shorts and t-shirts. But I actually went out and bought like grown people clothes so I could take her to this nice gig. But Rochelle Farrell was the opening act for the Whispers, and I knew what she was going to do. But we're sitting there, and I'm completely fixated on the guitar player, who is just playing some of the most otherworldly, amazing stuff. And I'm just like, who is this dude? That's all I keep saying to myself. Who is this dude? So they get to a track called "I Forgive You," and she starts off the track, and she goes, "Go on and speak to the people, Jef." And he proceeded to just school was in session. And I'm sitting there with goosebumps and chills. I'm like, who is this motherfucker? Getting to the song, and I'm just his choice of chords, his whole arsenal of everything was just beyond. And I'm just like, this dude is just killing me. And when they ended the song, everybody got up and she introduced him as the Emperor, Jef Lee Johnson, and everybody got up and gave him a standing applause. And I was like, Jef Lee Johnson. Oh. I wrote it on my hand, like, you won't remember that, but that was my introduction to him without it being my introduction. So
Yeah, Jef with one F.
the next thing winds up being Jungle. So I was watching, I think it was, what was it? It was it might have been, the show was Homicide, Life on the Streets. And Yaphet Kotto played I think the chief of police. And the whole episode literally kind of like started at the end of the day, went through how the day turned into what it turned into, and then ended with it how it started. So it turned out there was like a riot in the city. There was all kinds of unrest, all kinds of mayhem. And the way the show started was him in his office. Like at the end of the day, he was just sitting there. And in the day, he showed everything else that happened. So at the end of the show, it ended with him walking into the office, sitting down in the chair, shutting the blinds, and just sitting back. And Jungle comes on. I took a little nap, woke up in the jungle, and he's mouthing the words. And I'm like, I know that. I'm like, but once again, it was like that moment, and I was like, I gotta see who that was. So when the credits roll, Jef Lee Johnson, I'm like, okay. So the weird thing was we did a series of shows called the Million Man Moth shows. Ronnie Drayton's son had been unjustly incarcerated. So us and Living Color got together to raise money. And we did the first one, success. And Jef had reached out to Ronnie and said, if you guys ever do another one, I'd love to participate. Like, okay, cool. So one day Ronnie calls me. He goes, dude, oh man, Jef Lee Johnson wants to get down if we do a second one. I was like, wow, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh man. He goes, you know Jef, right? And I was like, no. I said, I know of Jef, but I don't know Jef. He goes, oh man, and he proceeds to tell me, like, you never know which Jef you're gonna get when you talk to Jef. And I was like, really? Because what I didn't know was that he had gotten married to the love of his life, and not long after getting married, she died in a car crash. Car got T-boned. And from that point moving forward, Jef was never the same. Depression was, for lack of a better word, became like the umbrella which he sat under. he didn't want to play. He literally just didn't want to live. But the best thing that came out of that was George Duke, which I was so grateful for. George Duke was going back out on the road like a year or so later, and he calls Jef and he tells Jef, I need you to come and play with me. And Jef said, no, I don't want to go. And George said, you have to go. And Jef said, I don't want to go, I don't want to play. And George said, well, if you don't go, my wife's going to kill me because I'm not going to go on tour. Jef said, oh, man, okay. So Jef went out, and it wound up being like a cathartic experience. It was really necessary for him to be around people who loved him and, you know, cared about him. And he was doing what he was meant to do. But it would ebb and flow, you know. He'd be dark Jef, he'd be light Jef, he'd be whatever he was. So Ronnie says, let's call Jef. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Three-way. Phone rings. Jef answers like, yeah, hello. Ronnie goes, hey, Jef, what up? It's Ed. Oh, yeah, hey, what's up? He goes, I got Jimi Hazel on the line. I was like, hey, Jef. He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Ronnie goes, so, you know, we were just talking about possibly putting together another Million Man Mosh. You know, and I remember you said if we did, you wanted to get down. You know, you still think you might want to do that? Jef just goes, Ronnie goes, okay. He goes, so what's going on, man? How you doing? Ronnie goes, okay. He goes, so how you feeling? After like four, Ronnie goes, motherfuckers, all you gonna say is, And Jef goes, no. He goes, well, what? Jef goes, Mr. Hazel. I said, yeah. I said, yeah, what's up? He goes, what took you so long? I said, oh, okay, it's like that. And that started the most unbelievable brotherhood between Jef and myself. And it was crazy because I learned so much. Like I didn't know the extent of the depression. I didn't know the extent of the darkness. I didn't know a lot of it because he never brought it to me. He would reach out to me, and you know, I found out a lot of stuff after the fact. He wouldn't talk to people. You know, he wouldn't interact, but he would talk to me. He would call me. He would email me. You know, we talk about music because we were on the same page about a lot of stuff. I just didn't know how deep it was. So he winds up playing in D'Angelo's band. But he wasn't enjoying himself, wasn't having a good time. So, and he would call and just go, this is not my thing. I said, well, everybody's talking about you. He goes, I don't care. I'm not happy here. So he winds up leaving D'Angelo. And the funny thing was, who replaces him? And
Jesse.
It's Jesse.
Yeah.
So the crazy thing was this one show. They were going to do a European tour. And Jesse was all slated to go, but didn't realize there was a problem with the passport. So Jesse couldn't go. So D'Angelo calls Jef. Oh man, you gotta come out, man. You gotta come out, man. Jef is like, no, no. Oh man, you gotta come out, man. You gotta save me, man. I can't cancel these dates, Just come out, hold it down until Jesse can get his shit together and come on out, blah, blah, blah. Jef goes out. So the crazy thing was, he was excited, and so was Jesse, because I think they thought at some point they were going to wind up playing together because they knew each other. They played together with Shaka Khan. Not too long, on a couple of sessions or whatever it was, but they thought they were going to cross paths. And the day Jef left was the day Jesse came over, and they missed each other. And the crazy thing was that people kept saying, Jef Lee, Jef Lee, Jef Lee, but they were saying Jesse. So it's like, y'all missing it. Y'all got them confused. You know, one dude is one dude, the other dude's the other dude. So he winds up going out with Esperanza Spalding, which was great. Came to New York. They did an Austin City Limits episode. But he goes, he was really excited again about playing. And he goes, Jimmy, I booked a show in New York. I was like, you're kidding. He goes, no. I said, oh, he goes, I'm coming home. I was like, oh, this is great. He goes, let everybody know. I was like, I will. And we did. The weirdest thing was they put him on to play the late night slot at the Blue Note. So that meant it was a 12 o'clock show. Chris Bodie had a residency at the Blue Note. So the club is packed with Japanese tourists and, whatever. They come to hear, whatever. And and it was weird because this one day, it was beautiful outside. It was gorgeous, but they kept saying there was this crazy nor'easter that was going to creep in by late afternoon, early evening, and it was going to get cold. And my girl says to me, you're probably not going to go because it's going to be freezing. I was like, oh, I'm going. For me, it was like we were going to play together the following month for the second Million Man March. But I was like, I have to go. It's like I got to go kiss the ring. So sure enough, she comes home. I'm dressed. She goes, you're really going? I was like, yeah. But here's how the day went. By 2 o'clock, it was 50 degrees. By 4 o'clock, it was 40 degrees. By the time I left to go downtown, it was 25 degrees. I mean, it was unbelievable. By the time I got downtown and got out the train station, it was absolutely freezing. So I make my way to the club, and I look through the glass doors, and Jef was standing there. And I knock on the glass because you couldn't go in because the club was overpacked. They weren't taking any more people for Chris Bodie's performance. So I knock on the glass, and Jef sees me. And this is the first time we see each other, and it was like long lost family and whatnot. And we just the 6 months, the year leading up to that moment had just cemented this relationship. And we just standing there laughing and talking and whatnot. And while we're standing there laughing and talking, we're listening. And Chris Bodie's band starts playing Iron Man. And we're like, I guess this is him getting off. What is this all about? In the meantime, people are going crazy. Like, he's rocking out. We're like, oh, God. He goes, well, come on inside. So we go upstairs. He has Michael Bland playing drums with him. It's Johannes Toner on bass, 3-piece. This was the first time me and Michael meet, but I knew who he was, But everything once again is like I don't think I ever think that everybody knows who. You're not supposed to know me. I'm supposed to know you, but you're not supposed to know me. But you actually do. That's crazy. But everybody all just sitting around talking, and I tell Jef the first time I saw him, which winds up being the Richard Burrell show. And he's like, that's crazy. I said, no. He goes, you want to know how I got introduced to Spyz? I'm like, please. He goes, 1989. I'm sitting at home. I have a bowl of Lucky Charms. I'm watching BET. And the Jungle Boogie video comes on. I was like, oh, wow. He goes, I literally took a spoonful, looked up, dropped my spoon and said, more niggas are coming. More niggas are coming. I was like, oh, dude. So he knew about us from the moment we hit, which was mind-blowing to me. Once again, it's that thing. But Michael had said, this can't possibly be the first time you guys have met. I said, you mean in the flesh? I said, it is. He goes, no. He goes, y'all dudes, this camaraderie is years in the making. I said, this is family. And I said, well, I'll tech for you. You know what I'm saying? I said, so what you got? He goes, oh, I have, they got me a twin. I got my guitars. I'm like, where's your pedal board? He goes, I don't have one. I'm like, okay. So I take his stuff downstairs, get him set up. And I'm like, well, what do you got? He had one pedal with him. He had a rat pedal. That was it. Now I owned a rat pedal years ago, and I was like, okay, whatever. Dude gets up. Now Chris Bodie went into overtime. So, but they, because people are buying and the bar is flowing and the money, they don't clear anybody out. So what would have been a 12 o'clock start for Jeff's show now becomes an almost 1 o'clock start. It's freezing outside, and they were turning people away who wanted to buy tickets because they wanted to clear the house and start with a fresh pad. So if you came up to buy a ticket for Jeff's show, they told you to come back in a half an hour. It's 10 degrees outside. Who in their right mind is going to leave and come back? They open the doors. The diehards were outside lined up. They come on in. Now, if you were there and you watched Chris Bodie's show, it was ass to elbow deep. You couldn't turn around in there. It was packed. The people coming for Jeff's show, the house is maybe 70% crowded. Not even that. And they come on down, and Jef, he was in good spirits to start. About 3-4 songs in, because he wasn't playing like 2-minute songs. He was stretching out and, doing his thing. By now it's maybe 2 o'clock, and some people have started to leave. So this was when I saw something I'd never seen before in my life. And I sat in front of his rig. And all of a sudden, Jef slipped into this dark place. And Jef said, I just want to thank all the people who said they were going to come that didn't come. And I was like, okay, that was sarcastic, but he was acerbic anyway, so I thought nothing of it. And dude launched into they started to play, and I think for the first time in my life, I saw spirits come out of an amp. I mean, I was literally like frozen. I saw apparitions. It scared the shit out of me, because I was like, dude is in such a dark place that he's playing out his demons, and shit was just coming. And I'm just sitting there. I couldn't move. I sat there for the length of the song, and I was like, when it was over, I was exhausted. And he stayed in that same place for like 2 more songs, and I literally was just spent. And by the time they finished those 3 songs, there were maybe 40 people left in the club. And he snapped out of it and decided to play jungle. And we made as much noise as 30, 40 people could make. And they killed it. Show's over. It's like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. So everybody, they want to stop and say hello, but they got to get the hell out. They got to try to get home. Now, mind you, at this point, it's like 5 degrees outside. And Jef had on this Hendrix-style military jacket, and he sweated the hell out of it. So his sisters were there. I didn't know. So he brought them up, and he's more excited to introduce his sisters to me. And I'm like, it's not even about me, it's about you. You know what I'm saying? And Judy, one of his sisters, had said to him, I don't even know why. I was kind of like, how like you're not supposed to be a fly on the wall for certain conversations, but you are. And she said to him, are you going to come home for Christmas? And he said, I don't celebrate Christmas. I don't do holidays. And she goes, well, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to get a bowl of Lucky Charms and watch the Twilight Zone marathon. And she started to cry. And I was like, okay, like I don't think I'm supposed to be in the middle of this conversation. You know what I'm saying? And and the other sister, Joanne, said, are you gonna stay the night? You know, because we got hotel rooms. And he was like, no, I'm gonna go back to Philly. And they were like, you don't have to. You know, we got extra rooms. You know, he was like, no, I want to go home. And I stayed there for the whole time. And I said, well, I got to figure out how I'm going to get home, because for me to take the train at that time, man, I wouldn't have got home until 6 o'clock. I said, well, I'm going to see if I can catch a cab. And he goes, I'm going to walk you outside. And I was like, no, dude, don't step outside. You know, I got a Woolrich on. I got my Timbs on. I'm ready for the weather. He had a leather jacket with fringe, which was beautiful. When he held out his arms, the fringe dropped. That was his Rainbow Crow jacket. And he puts that on over his sweaty suede Hendrix style vest to walk me outside. And I was like, dude, do not, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Luckily, I walked outside. As soon as I put my hand up, a cab pulled up. I said, I'm straight. You know, gives me a hug. I said, dude, don't even worry about tonight. We're going to make up for it in 3 weeks, you know, when we all get together. Because the show that we were going to do, that Million Man Mosh show, was, we had Eddie Martinez, us, Living Color. It was just going to be like the Cats. So he was like, hell yeah, we gonna kill it. I was like, exactly. So my last sight of him was me pulling off, but he didn't walk back into the club. He walked across the street into the garage, and it was freezing outside. And all I kept thinking was, I wish he would stay in New York and not drive home. Because if he was going to drive home, he has to stay awake. And if he has to stay awake, that means more than likely he's going to keep the window open. It's 5 degrees outside. Well, you know, I said, let me know when you get home. You know, I finally hear, yeah, I'm here. You know, okay, cool. But he winds up getting sick. And so by the time the Million Man Mosh show comes about, Ronnie had said, did you hear from Jef? I said, no. He goes, let's call him. And he calls, and Jef had sent me a message maybe 3 days before. He said, I blew my leg out, but I'll be all right. He goes, I got a cold that I'm trying to shake, and but I'll be all right. I'm like, okay. I said, you good? You gonna come? He's like, yeah, I'm not gonna miss this for nothing. So we call him when we get the sound check, and his sister answers the phone, and she goes, he's not going anywhere. And Ronnie goes, what's wrong? She goes, he's sick, and he's in the back, just kind of like just speaking incoherently. And he goes, who's that? And she goes, it's Ronnie and Jimmy. And he goes, I want to talk to them. Give me the phone. So he gets on the phone with Ronnie, and he says, I'm trying to get somebody to bring me down for the show. And Ronnie said, no, dude, don't pull no cowboy shit. Stay your ass at home. And he was like, no, I need to be there, you know. Sister got back on the phone. She goes, Jeff's not going anywhere. I said, okay. So we do the show, you know, because the other thing was, when we talked about what did he want to do for the show. I'm sorry this is such a long story, but I asked him, what do you want to do? And he was in one of those moods like he didn't care. And I said, well, what do you want to play? And he was like, I don't care. He goes, whatever. And I was like, dude, it can't be whatever. It's got to be what you want to do. And I immediately knew this was going to be one of those days where we weren't going to have a good conversation. So I thought, and I said, I got an idea. I said, why don't you come up and play with Spyz, and we can do jungle. And he lit up like a Christmas tree. He was like, really? I was like, yeah. I said, dude, you come up, we'll all play jungle together. He was like, yeah. So that's what we had planned to do. Didn't make the show. That whole, I think the week leading up to his passing, which was crazy, we lost Sugarfoot. I think we lost Lou Wilson from Mandrill. And these are all, you know, my dudes. And then I got a message from Michael Bland, and he was like, Jimmy, you can't tell anybody, but Jeff's in a coma. And I was like, what does that mean, you know? but he passed like 2 days later. Um, so 2013 for me winds up being a really strange year because I went into a deep depression. I lost 18 people that year, and I couldn't figure it out. I lost people that meant a lot to me. Um, and it didn't stop. It started in January and it went up to November. Um, but in my depression, I couldn't hear. So I, thought I was supposed to be writing the next Spyz record, and that didn't happen. Um, so I think it was 2 years later, I finally, because I was mad at Jef, and I had learned so much in the wake of his passing, just how important our relationship was from other people, because he talked to everybody about me. Deep, and it was like, okay. And that's when I had the idea to do the thing for Jef.
There's much more to this great Truth and Rhythm interview. Just continue on to the next part of the episode. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. And become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon or consider donating at funkandstuff.net. Thank you very much.